Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, Esprit and the Feeble Phobio successfully stalled Peliod, holding out for 40 minutes until reinforcements, Gobta and Ranga, arrived. Meanwhile, Frey defeated one of the insect generals, Torin, causing a significant shift in the battlefield's balance. Beat-Hop, driven by anxiety, showcased his overwhelming strength, completely overpowering Gabaru and Sufia. However, driven by a primal instinct to leave behind offspring in the face of death, Gabaru confessed his feelings to Sufia, spurred on by her praise. This emotional boost led him to defeat his powerful opponent. In this episode, we will continue with the battles of Carrion, Midre, Abra, Gobta, and Ranga. Let's get started. Due to the death of Insect General Torin, the battlefield underwent a significant shift, beginning with the fight between Beast King Carrion and another Insect General, Abarth. This battle was the most predictable one in the entire war because Carrion had been cautiously conserving his strength to handle any sudden changes on the battlefield. Although it seemed like both sides were evenly matched, Abarth was actually fighting with all his might against a Carrion who was holding back most of his power. Carrion skillfully maintained the balance of the fight, searching for a chance to deliver a fatal blow. Torin's sudden death caused Abarth to become agitated, and Carrion did not miss this momentary opportunity. He used Beast's Roar to pierce through the enemy's body, winning the battle. It's important to note that Carrion's ultimate move was Burst Roar, which he had demonstrated several times in the underground labyrinth. However, the experienced Carrion had yet to use this move until now. The perspective shifts to the battle between Midre and Insect General Serel, which was also a predictable fight. Midre didn't regard Serel as a significant threat. Instead, he calmly observed the entire battlefield. Midre was a formidable warrior, much like Diablo, a combat maniac. To enjoy the battle more, he would suppress his own power, bringing his body to the same level as his opponents, relying on his experience and skills to achieve victory. Midre's assessment of Serel was straightforward. Serel's attack methods were very one-dimensional, seemingly overconfident in his use of poison. However, poison had no effect on Midre. Midre couldn't help but mockingly ask Serel what he planned to do next. Serel was deeply affected by Midre's taunting attitude, angrily flailing his scorpion-like tail, but no matter how much he thrashed, he couldn't hit Midre, only revealing more weaknesses. At this point, killing Serel would have been very easy. However, Midre delayed, as he sensed a strange aura enveloping the battlefield. It was a sticky aura, exuding a powerful presence very similar to Milim. Midre cautiously probed this aura with his power, but the other party seemed completely uninterested in him, almost indifferent, as if he could eliminate Midre at any moment. This aura was so calm and thorough that it seemed devoid of any emotion, sending chills down one's spine. To investigate the true nature of this powerful aura, Midre refrained from killing Serel. Similarly, Abra, who could have quickly defeated her opponent, was also observing the battlefield due to the presence of this aura. As for the others, they seemed oblivious. Primordial Yellow Carrera, battling the strongest insect generals Gelb, fighting the centipede-formed insect general Mujika, Gobta and Ranga, battling Peliod, all were too engrossed in their intense fights to notice anything else. Subsequently, Frey defeated Torin, Gabaru defeated Beat-Hop, and Carrion defeated Abarth. Each time an insect general died, Midre could feel the evil aura permeating the battlefield growing thicker and more dangerous. Although Midre didn't understand why the aura intensified with each insect general's death, his intuition warned him that something catastrophic was about to happen, so he heightened his vigilance. As the sticky, powerful aura increased, Frey and Carrion also finally sensed the ominous premonition. They instinctively felt something was wrong, but it wasn't until after defeating their opponents and feeling the auras increase that they became certain. Midre saw his two companions finally becoming aware and couldn't help but think that they still needed to improve and train further. In a battle, if they couldn't constantly observe their surroundings, they were not qualified to be subordinates of Milim-sama. This thought, though harsh, was Midre's true feeling. At that moment, Midre's thoughts were interrupted by Serel's roar. Serel, furious, declared he would reveal his hidden technique. He plunged his venomous scorpion stinger into his own body, activating the berserk state overdrive with his willpower, instantly increasing his strength and speed severalfold. Facing such a Serel, even Midre couldn't continue to toy with him. Despite the ominous premonition lingering in his mind, Midre decided to end the battle quickly. Serel charged at Midre, but Midre bound him mid-charge with a burst of fighting spirit. Unable to move, Serel was then killed by a single punch from Midre, his body shattering into pieces. The battle ended, but Midre's expression grew more serious. With Serel's death, the oppressive aura intensified further. Midre muttered as he looked at the sky, now covered in dark clouds, as if warning him that killing Serel had been a mistake. The perspective shifted to Abra, whose opponent was Tishon, a foe with blade-like hands capable of cutting through anything. However, to one of the 7 angels of origin like Abra, it felt like fighting a child. The reason she hadn't killed her yet was that she shared the same concerns as Midre. As mentioned in episode 93, Abra had sensed that Zelenus had already arrived on the battlefield, hiding in the shadows and observing. This was also why Milim had yet to take action. After such a prolonged battle, Abra keenly noticed something unusual. The enemy's forces had dwindled to less than half of their original strength, yet Abra's ultra-intuition indicated that the enemy's overall combat power hadn't diminished at all. This feeling was further validated after Frey defeated Tauren. Despite the death of an insect general, the enemy's overall power remained unchanged. This suggested that the Insectars might have some special mechanism, or perhaps the deaths of the insect generals were part of Zelenus's strategy. At this moment, Abra recalled her former companion Zelario's complaints. Zelario had once mentioned that fighting the Insectars was particularly troublesome, even when they were defeated. Therefore, it was crucial to carefully choose the battleground. At the time, Abra thought Zelario's complaints were just expressions of psychological fatigue. Looking back now, his words might have had a deeper meaning. This was one of the issues within the entire Feldway team. Each member focused solely on their tasks and showed little interest in others' responsibilities, following Feldway's arrangements to the letter. While battling Tishon, Abra continued to observe the battlefield. Following Milim's side's consecutive victories, with Beathop and Abarth being defeated, the Insector's combat power still showed no change. Abra's sharp senses detected danger. A bad premonition surged within her, and she realized that they could no longer afford to continue defeating the insect generals. After making this judgment, Abra wanted to issue a warning, advising her companions not to kill their opponents. However, her warning came a bit too late, as Midre had already defeated Serel. Now, with only 4 insect generals remaining, Abra felt a sense of foreboding about what might happen next, and her expression grew somber. Noticing this, Tishon laughed, openly stating that the weak Insectars were of no consequence. As long as their master Zelenus's power remained, their deaths were meaningless. Unlike the fallen insect generals, Tishon had existence points reaching 1.8 million, making her the 4th strongest among the Insectars. At the same time, Tishon revealed her ultimate technique, disrupting slash, unleashing shockwaves from her arms that sliced through everything in their path. These waves could even cut through dimensions, and although the dimensional rifts healed instantly due to the world's restorative powers, any material caught in the rift couldn't withstand the attack. Abra skillfully dodged the attack, recognizing Tishon as a somewhat threatening opponent. Tishon wasn't strong compared to Abra, she was undoubtedly a lower-level entity. However, Abra now wanted to neutralize this opponent without killing her, a difficult task given Abra's injuries from the battle with Michael that hadn't fully healed. Meanwhile, Tishon continued to unleash disrupting slashes. When she realized she couldn't hit Abra, she suddenly shouted to the sky, praying for power from her mother, Peliod. In an instant, Tishon also entered a berserk state, like Serel, with her combat abilities increasing severalfold. Unlike Serel, Tishon could perfectly control the overdrive state. The nature of Tishon's attacks changed drastically. Tens of thousands of disrupting slashes now sliced through everything around them, making it impossible to escape from this deadly zone. This was Tishon's strongest technique, disrupting slash, final dance. Abra stood at the center of the countless attacks, but this time she did not dodge. Her body radiated an intense light. Since the enemy now threatened her comrades, killing Tishon was worth it. Abra unleashed the holy aura she had been suppressing, and her mythical armament covered her entire body. In her hands she wielded the colossal, double-edged mythical great sword, Beast Slayer. This was Abra's favorite weapon from her countless battles with cryptids, representing a resolve to annihilate her opponent even at the cost of harming herself. At this moment, Abra's existence points exceeded 20 million, fully unleashing the weapon's potential. Tishon's expression remained contemptuous, claiming that Abra had long missed her chance to showcase her strength. Tishon's death space, due to its obstructive nature, prevented anyone trapped inside from using spatial movement skills to escape, ensuring Abra's complete destruction. Abra, just as calmly, remarked that such a skill was merely a child's trick. Disrupting slash final dance did indeed tear Abra's body apart, but just as the world could heal, so too did Abra's body return to its original form. Abra's physical form was not only connected to the material world but also to the spiritual realm, so such attacks caused her little harm. Simultaneously, Abra channeled her magic into the Beast Slayer. Seeing Abra glowing, Tishon's body began to tremble involuntarily. Yes, she was afraid. As the situation developed, Tishon, who now fully grasped the reality, was powerless. Abra had already unleashed her hidden skill, Planet's Bombing, a massive descending slash that brought equal death to all. Tishon, caught in the onslaught, was obliterated before she could even display the dignity of a strong warrior, reduced to ashes. The perspective shifted to Geld, who faced Magika, a warrior wielding a katana. Mujika's swordsmanship was on par with top-tier warriors, and his techniques didn't seem to be self-taught. Perhaps there were reincarnators in Otherworld who had imparted their advanced swordsmanship to him. However, what mattered most was that Magika was a formidable opponent, evenly matched with Geld. Geld blocked attacks with his giant shield while counterattacking with his meat crusher. Mujika parried with his katana, extending numerous small tendrils from the gaps in his armor to launch a counterattack. Geld used his Chaos Eater ability to extend similar tendrils, neutralizing the attack. Mujika, not to be outdone, entwined his tendrils with demonic energy, which cancelled out the Chaos Eater's tendrils. Their battle went back and forth, with either gaining the upper hand. Finally, after Tishon was eliminated, Mujika ceased his attack, stating that Peliod's preparations were almost complete and that he needed to retreat. Mujika remarked that he had enjoyed the fight with Geld, and his giant centipede-like insect army also assumed a retreat posture. Geld remained vigilant and, at that moment, sensed a massive, terrifying, oppressive aura. An overwhelming sense of crisis washed over him, and he realized that this aura had always been present, but he only noticed it now. Geld looked up at the sky, which was filled with dark clouds, indicating that someone significant was about to appear. He immediately issued a full alert order, and seeing Geld's unprecedentedly serious expression, everyone understood that the Rio battle was just beginning. The perspective then shifted to Gobta. Gobwa, commanding 300 Kurenai, had significantly improved the battlefield situation, gradually giving Milim's side the upper hand. However, Gobta and Ranga were locked in a tough battle. Peliod was an extremely difficult opponent. Despite Gobta's poison resistance, any contact with Peliod's poison would be fatal. This wasn't the kind of poison you could ingest to die. It was a caustic substance that caused severe pain upon even the slightest contact. Gobta felt an immense danger. To avoid being killed by the poison, Gobta and Ranga unhesitatingly used their trump card, Demon Wolf Transformation. Initially, with their newfound immense strength, they were quite overconfident, aiming to defeat Peliod in one go. However, this arrogance quickly dissipated because Peliod was exceedingly powerful. Peliod's existence points were 1.5 times higher than the combined form of Gobta and Ranga, reaching 6.8 million, making her the second strongest after Zes. Moreover, Peliod possessed spatial abilities capable of reflecting even Carrera's abyss annihilation. Despite Gobta and Ranga giving their all, they could only maintain a balance in close-quarters combat. However, this equilibrium was disrupted by Peliod's transformation. Both Ranga and Gobta noticed that Peliod's aura grew stronger as the battle progressed, shifting them from an initial offensive stance to a purely defensive one. Peliod's attacks became increasingly varied, each strike carrying lethal intent. Gobta couldn't help but complain about such a monster becoming significantly stronger during the fight, while Ranga remained calm, stating that he too had ever experienced similar situations, so there was no reason to be surprised. Gobta retorted that while it was acceptable for allies, it was unfair if the opponent had such an ability. Gobta understood that reinforcements were unlikely to arrive. Rimuru-sama was engaged on another battlefield, and Benimaru had to defend their homeland. They could only rely on themselves. Gobta and Ranga encouraged each other, planning to fight to the bitter end and aiming for a quick victory, though this determination seemed futile. They executed Dance with Wolves to confuse Peliod, followed by Apocalypse Howling, a two-part attack they had trained for extensively. Yet, Peliod easily evaded both attacks. Witnessing this, Gobta and Ranga immediately felt disheartened, with Ranga suggesting that escape might be the best option. Gobta quickly dismissed this idea, stating that fleeing would only increase Carrera and the others' burden. They had to hold off Peliod, as this wasn't just a battle but a war, and fleeing would have irreversible consequences on the battlefield. Just as Gobta was grappling with what to do, reinforcements arrived. Frey and Carrion appeared in time, giving Gobta new hope. However, at that moment, everyone heard Peliod's faint voice, expressing frustration and disappointment at her children's weakness. Everyone understood that this was the signal for the final round of the battle to commence. Alright, that's all for this video. In this episode, everyone noticed the strange situation with the Insectars. Although Milim's side gained the upper hand in the battle, the overall combat power of the opponent was unaffected. Peliod continued to grow stronger. In fact, the soul power of all the fallen Insectars would return to either Peliod or Zelenus, a skill known as Restored Life. We will explain this in more detail in the upcoming episodes. In our next episode, Primordial Carrera will make her appearance and battle the strongest insect general, Zes. At the same time, Peliod will showcase incredible power, fighting against Abra, Midre, Carrion, Frey, Gobta, and Ranga all at once without losing ground. Through Carrera's narration, we will also confirm that Zijin is stronger than Zes. The next episode will be just as exciting. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.